All right, hello everyone and welcome to tonight's webinar, which is part 2 of a webinar series that we've been doing on stress. And tonight is really all about when stress makes you extremely sick and when your adrenals start crying out for help. So Trudy and I have been doing these webinars together. Well, we've been doing health and wellness coaching for over 50 years with combined experience. And we've been doing these webinars together for a couple of months now, just to get some really great sound information out there for people on specific health topics. And for quite a number of years now, 20 years actually, we have traveled the globe together doing science symposiums and learning and going to speaking engagements and all sorts of things. We do want to remind you tonight that we're not doctors, and this information that we're giving you is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. It is very significant information, and so we want you to consult your physician if you're going to make any changes to your diet, exercise, or supplementation routine. You're going to want to grab a notebook and a pen and really focus for 20 to 25 minutes on the information that we have to give you tonight, because it's all about stress and how it may be negatively affecting you. I want to start out with some statistics. More than 20% of patients seeking a second opinion were actually misdiagnosed the first time by their primary care physician. And medically unexplained symptoms account for 45%, nearly half of all visits to a general practitioner are for medically unexplained symptoms. And it's estimated that 1 in 13 Americans suffer from an undiagnosed condition. A lot of those conditions are actually related to stress. So what is stress? The term was coined in 1936 by a man who really defined it as the nonspecific response of the body to any demand for change. Stress can, and it does, affect your health, and it can be deadly, which you're going to hear tonight. So we're going to take a couple minutes for review. Trudy's going to get us up to speed, and then you're going to hear a really scary but fascinating story.
Thank you, Tonya. If you were not on here last week, we're going to review really quickly what we went over last week. So here we go. Stress affects everyone. Stress, not all stress is bad, but it is long-term stress that can harm your health. And here is what your adrenals look like. The red, those are your kidneys, and sitting right on top of the kidneys are the adrenals. They kind of get neglected, but that's where they are. They're an organ of the body. It's very important. And you can see that they sit right there under the edge of your rib cage. So it's a little higher than most people really think they are. But that's where they sit. And those are the little babies that we're going to be talking about tonight. So what happens is when you get scared, like it's kind of like the tiger's chasing you, your body perceives that you are in danger, and all of these things happen that are on this list right here. Now, the good Lord made our body so that we could respond to that stress and get back to normal and get back into survival and not stay in survival mode. But here's the issue. In the fast pace that everybody's living now, all day long, the stress response button is getting pushed in our body. And the adrenals are just pushing and pushing and pushing all day long, never getting back to normal, even in non-life-threatening situations. So now I'm going to share a story with you. This is a story of my youngest son, Benjamin. And this is the first time that we've told this story tonight, and he gave me permission to tell it. Okay, so he graduated from high school and went to college in the fall of 2010. And when he was there, he was determined that he was going to be one of the top kids at the school. So he was studying day and night, and through 5 years of college, he succeeded with that goal, because through 5 years of college, studying day and night, he ended up with all A's. He had 1 A- in 5 years of college. So that tells you how much that he was pouring himself into his studies, just pushing, pushing, pushing. So that alone is stressful right there, knowing that scholarships are hanging in the balance and all of that. But on top of that, add the fact that he was living in the dorm, and the boys that were in the dorm really were staying up all hours of the night, slamming doors, making noise, and he was probably getting about 3 hours of sleep. And sleep is one thing that's so important for your body to recover recover, especially when it's under stress. So he started having some issues. The first time that I knew he was having issues, he knew he was having issues, but nobody could tell us what it was. So I got an eye-opening experience. He was standing in my kitchen. He started eating yogurt. The first bite he took of yogurt, he started severely shaking. And I said, what is wrong with you? That is not normal. He said, I don't know, but here lately, every time I eat something cold, I immediately start shaking and I cannot stop shaking. I don't know what it is. So now this is our water drinker. All he's had to drink since he was probably 12 or 13 is water. That's all the kid drinks. So we knew he was drinking plenty of water, but we didn't know what in the world was going on. You would think if he's shaking like this, he's dehydrated. So we ended up taking to the emergency room several times. And this was another big puzzle because every time we took him and they gave him fluids, he would get back to normal. So you think, okay, he really was dehydrated, but he's drinking enough water. So what in the world's going on? Well, after 4 years in school, he also had a positive stress experience. He got married. And of course, we all know that that's stress. It's a good stress, but it's a stress. And then after he graduated from college of 5 years, he got accepted into Nashville Software School. So he went straight in to software school. And this was intensive training for the next 6 months, 8 hours a day in computer. And then he went straight from that into a stressful computer job where his job all day long was to fix people's problems. He literally got a list every morning saying, these are all the companies and these are their problems on their websites. You need to start working on this today. So it was stressful, 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 on and on and on. So these are some of the symptoms. They just kept getting worse and worse. Now, keep in mind, nobody ever could give us an idea. All the times, I can't tell you how many times we went to the doctor. I can't tell you how much money we spent. Nobody ever gave us an idea of what this could be. You know, okay, so look at this. He would always say, I'm just feeling strange. Things are not normal. Sometimes he would be shaking. He'd be clammy, could hardly make himself eat. But I showed the picture of the eye because this was one of the scariest things. He was at our house one day and he started saying he was not feeling right. And so I looked at his pupils because we learned that pupils were sometimes affected with him. One pupil was dilated and one pupil was not. Now, if you don't think that's scary, think again. Okay, so you think, what's going on with the brain? We've been to doctor after doctor after doctor. We've had kidney scans. We've had everything done. Nobody is telling us anything. Nobody can tell us what's going on. Something's going on. Okay, he would get weak. He would say, I don't feel like I can walk across the floor. My legs are heavy. What is going on? Something's going on with me. He would have panic attacks, adrenaline rushes, low blood sugar. He could not literally sit through a short meeting at work without thinking he was going to pass out or just his head was going to explode. I just got to get up from here. Just so anxious and everything going on. He also would complain of pain. He would say, I got pain in my spleen. And I would say, how do you know? And he would say, because I know where my spleen is. Just all kinds of weird symptoms like random joint pain. It's like for a year, he and his wife could not even go out to eat because of all the noise in the restaurants, all the talking and music and stuff. He could not tolerate the noise. And so it goes on and on. He couldn't go to the mall because the lights made him just have adrenaline rushes. So finally, here is the timeline that I put together this week. This is pretty amazing. I'm not going to name everything on here, but you can see that he started college in 2010. And you can go fast forward to the first time we took him to the emergency room for the shaking. He had already been having symptoms, but the first time we took him to the emergency room was March of 2014. And if you scan down through that, you will see that in March of 2017, 3 years later, getting worse this whole time, nobody telling us anything it could be, it was March of 2017 before we ever got one idea that this could be related to the adrenals and adrenal fatigue. And that was through a Shackley friend that we got that info that it might be that. And we started researching and taking suggestions for what we could do. And that's when we found out that the reason he was going to the emergency room was when your adrenals get pushed far enough along, what happens is your body cannot process sodium. So your body starts throwing sodium into the kidneys. And when that happens, all of your electrolytes get totally messed up. So that was the big mystery that finally got solved for us, because when we would take him to the emergency room and the fluids would level him out, That's why, because his electrolytes were messed up because his body was throwing sodium out. Now, that is a very dangerous position to be in. And Tonya's going to tell you even more about that. But the good news is, if you have any of these symptoms, even the beginning, and you start educating yourself and learning some things that you can do, then there is help. Because in November of last year, 2019, that's the first time that the words even came out of his mouth. He said, I'm starting to feel like I did in high school. So it's not an overnight thing. It's not like getting over the flu, because you have a body organ that is literally starting not to function, okay? So then we go on and we find out that just this week, he said he's basically feeling normal, and he's very proactive at controlling stress, because he's literally been at death's door. That's just what it amounts to. And that's the first story we wanted to share with you tonight, to let you know there is help, because he was a long ways down the road. And the next story, I'm going to turn it over to Tonya.
Okay, thank you, Trudy. So for those of you who are on the call tonight, on the webinar tonight, and you don't know much about me, I need to give you a little bit of background information, because it's not going to make a whole lot of sense what I tell you when you go, wait a minute, aren't you in the health and wellness field? When you hear my story, and it's not going to make sense. So I've been a student of health and fitness for 30 years. I have degrees and certifications from education, nutrition, personal training as a wellness educator, and for 20 years, I've been doing nutrition counseling. And I had a top-rated radio talk show on health. So health and wellness has been more than half of my life, but that doesn't exempt me from the effects of stress. So here's the background of my story. I also had classes in photography and digital media, and I enjoyed photography as a hobby. I got asked to help start up a photography studio and to just part-time work in the summer photographing seniors. And I thought it sounded like a fun change of pace for me, and did it. But if you know anything about me, you know part-time and me don't go together very well. So before long, I was training other photographers, acquiring accounts, managing accounts, and doing the fine detail and minutia of running an entire studio. And then I ended up working a lot of hours. So what started out as part-time for fun ended up to be full-time work. During this time, I also experienced loss, and not a little loss, a lot of loss. In a 3-month period, I lost one of my dearest friends, I lost my grandmother, and I lost our next door neighbor who was like a grandfather to my children. And in the 12 months that followed that, I also lost my dad and his brother, my uncle, all 5 to cancer within that 15-month time period. Also, during that time period, I went through a divorce, and my 3 children and I moved in with some friends until I could find a house to purchase of our own. So then, in addition to 6 basically adults living in a 3-bedroom house for 6 months, I moved 2 times in 6 months. So as you can see, my stress level was starting to mount. And during all of this, I was working 50 to 65 hours a week. And there were times I literally would fall asleep at my desk because I wasn't able to keep my eyes open, because I was pushing myself to a point of exhaustion. I started having some unusual symptoms. And then very quickly, everything started to fall apart. My health really started to shatter. Now, I want to remind you that during all of this time, I was still eating healthy. I was still finding time to exercise. I was still going to church. I was still developing my spiritual life. I was still reading. I was doing things to take care of my health. I was still taking all of my supplements. I did not stop doing any of those healthy things, but I allowed stress and overwork to impact my health in a very negative way because I didn't manage my stressors better. So here's what happened to me when I got in the most critical stage and got the most sick. It started out with just some minor symptoms that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I knew it wasn't normal for my health. I was never sick. But then when it all came crashing down, I started experiencing wild swings in my temperature. My temperature measured by a thermometer would be anywhere from 96 degrees to 103 or even higher. I would go from episodes of shaking and cold, just like Benjamin experienced, to sweating profusely, so much so that a blanket that was laying on top of me would be completely soaked. Then my heart rate would go absolutely crazy. So my heart rate at rest would be 100 to 130 beats per minute. And there was a period of time that I went 3 complete days that my heart rate, I was wearing a heart rate monitor, my heart rate never fell below 100 beats per minute, even when I was sleeping. And that happened multiple times. In addition to that, my blood pressure, which is always normally on the low end because of my fitness level and the way that I eat, plummeted to 89/56. I would almost faint every single time I stood up. Then, in addition to all of those symptoms, I started experiencing intense pain. Pain in my head, my back, my ribs. I couldn't even take a deep breath because it hurt so badly. My knees, I couldn't stand for my knees to touch each other. My fingers would hurt. My side would hurt. Even my ankles and my toes and my elbows would hurt. The pain would come on so suddenly and be so intense that literally I would be awakened from a very deep sleep because of a pain in my pinky finger or a pain in my elbow. It was that intense. So for me, I went from not ever taking any over-the-counter medications at all because I have a very high level of pain tolerance to taking 6 ibuprofen a day just to get through the day, which was not like me. Now you may be asking at this point, why didn't you call the doctor? Well, that's a very good question. A couple of things were happening. First of all, my symptoms were mild and just infrequent, and they were significant enough that I did call the doctor, and I went and got checked for kidney infections 2 or 3 different times, and it always came back that I didn't have a kidney infection, but I was experiencing symptoms in my kidneys. So I did go to the doctor, but everything was pretty normal when they did tests. But then it went from random, unexplained symptoms to kind of crashing very, very quickly. And at the point that it did, I was making excuses like, you know, I really want to go to the doctor. They're not going to be able to tell me what's wrong. And then I just got quickly to the point where I couldn't think straight enough to even make myself go to the ER. And I should have gone to the ER, but I was not even making good decisions for my own health at this point when all of that started to crash. When I did go to the doctor, after Trudy came to my house, which I'm going to tell you about in a second, when I did go to the doctor, she took 12 vials of blood and ran a lot of tests. And what she told me was that my sodium level was so critically low that she was shocked that I didn't have a heart attack. And she said, you would be the healthiest person I know to have a heart attack. And it was very sobering when she told me that. And so let me tell you how I ended up getting to the point of even going to the doctor, because I literally couldn't walk across the floor without assistance at this point that I completely crashed. So Trudy was supposed to come to my house, and we were just going to spend 2 or 3 days together doing some business planning and just really just hang out together. It had been a while since we'd had some time together. But when she came to my house, she immediately noticed that I was very, very sick. We tried to go out to eat. I couldn't stay there because I was physically shaking. I was so cold. And what was supposed to be 3 days turned into an entire week at my house of her taking care of me because I was completely unable to take care of myself at this point. I'm pretty certain that had she not been at my house, and that was literally the divine favor of the Lord, I can just tell you, had she not been at my house, I think that I probably would have died of dehydration because I literally didn't have the ability to get up and go get myself water. And I wasn't thinking clearly enough because of the adrenal fatigue situation. I wasn't thinking clearly enough to even go take care of myself. I couldn't eat. I'd gone days without eating anything. And I was in a state of extreme muscle wasting at this point. And so Trudy, because of her experience with Benjamin, was able to recognize all of my symptoms and start really just almost forcing me. She was proactive about putting into place the things that I needed to be doing to start reversing the symptoms that I was experiencing. Okay, let's quickly go through the 4 stages of stress. We went through the first 2 last week, so we won't go through those again. But what you just heard about my story is stage 3 and then stage 4 of stress. So in stage 3, what we experience is breakdown and exhaustion. Sorry, it's kind of skipping forward a little bit on me. let me go backwards. In stage 3, we're experiencing breakdown and exhaustion. The adrenals are overworked to the point that the cortisol production drops significantly and organ function just slows down to a halt. And let me just tell you that what is necessary for you in your mind is not necessary for your body in its mind. So when my digestive system completely shut down and I couldn't eat, that seemed pretty important to me, but my body was trying to keep me alive, and so everything else slowed down. Adrenal crashes are common and multiple organs are affected by it. So let me give you a quick picture of what's actually going on. You can see here this nice arranged neighborhood with the streets and the water around it. If you would imagine the water as being like your adrenal hormones, I'm going to kind of set the scene for you. So when there is water around houses and that sort of thing, we need something to hold back the water when it gets too high. So a flood wall or a dam will keep water safely away from cities and towns. And then if the water builds up too much on the backside, then we have the floodgates that can be opened for a controlled release of the water that has been built up. This is kind of how our body should function normally. Our adrenal glands are responsible for the controlled release of cortisol and adrenaline and some other endocrine hormones to bring our body back to homeostasis when the stress and the pressure start to build up. However, there are times in our life when we are overwhelmed by stress, and the stress level that we're experiencing causes a breach in that flood wall or a breach in the dam, and the result is actually a flooding of these adrenal hormones into the system. And it's just like when a flood happens in the neighborhood, the effect is quite devastating, and it takes a long time to recover from that, as you saw from Benjamin's timeline. And so when we're in the recovery phase, it's a series of crash recovery cycles, and that can take a while. And sometimes it can feel like you're recovering only to crash again. The water's coming back under the door as quickly as you're able to pump it out. But that's part of the natural healing process. And there are some serious implications that happen if you don't start taking care of your health. There's a high risk of cardiovascular collapse and even death, intense pain all over the body, severe vomiting, dehydration, constipation, fatal drops in blood pressure potentially, fainting, and being bedridden. I had every single symptom that's on stage 4 except for severe vomiting. Thankfully, most people never reach this stage, and even for the people who do, I'm living proof, thank you, Lord, that I had the tools, the resources, and the people necessary to actually heal. Now, last week you took a stress level assessment, and let me warn you or caution you, if you took that assessment and you thought to yourself, I only have 6 or 7 things checked, I'm doing really great, I only have 6 or 7 yeses, let me caution you that that's not actually doing really great. It should be an eye-opening experience for you. If you had 5 or less, then you're probably managing normal stressors of life pretty well. If you had more than that, it's time to really assess the stress level in your life and maybe set some boundaries to do something about it. If you had more than 10, 12, 14, it's a really good time to seek some specific help to not get to a level 3 or a level 4 of adrenal fatigue. Now, there are 3 main ways that people end up in adrenal crashes. The 3 most popular contributors to stress are people, projects, and problems. You see all the problems that you want to see in the news right now. Projects are everywhere, things that you need to get done, and well, obviously we can't get away from people. All right, so Trudy's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the things that we can do in a moment, but I just want to encourage you to ask for help. Learn to make healthier food choices. Learn gentle ways to exercise. Monitor your self-talk. Learn to relax. Say no, set boundaries. It's really important. And then learn which supplements are adaptogens and take them daily. Now, I'm just going to tell you, I went a really long time without eating, and if it hadn't been for the supplements, I would have had 0 nutrition, and my body needed nutrition more than it needed anything. So when it comes to supplements, it's really important that you know the supplements that are safe, tested, proven, and guaranteed. This x-ray says it all to me. There are vitamins that are leaving the body completely unabsorbed. Those aren't going to help you heal from adrenal fatigue or anything else. And that's why, thankfully, I'm so grateful that 20 years ago, I did the research. I found the company that did the most testing and had the most purity of products, and I chose Shaklee as my brand partner because honestly, it was a really critical part of my getting well. Trina's going to spend just a couple of minutes going through some of the more critical supplements that helped Benjamin and helped me too.
Okay, thank you, Tonya. And notice we call this critical because it is critical at this point. If you're in these stages, it is critical. Now, the reason that we call this critical is because the multivitamin obviously fills in the nutritional gaps. And if you're not eating and can't eat, then you need something to fill in those gaps. It's critical. So some people choose the multi, or some people choose to upgrade to the daily strip, which has the multi on it. Now, look, this is all the food that you would have to eat to get the nutrition that's found in just that one strip on the left. So now you can see, wow, my digestion is not working right. I probably could fill in the gaps with that one little strip. And here is what the strip comes in. It comes in a box, a 30-month supply, and this is very safe based on 13 clinical trials. That means it works on people. And it's also been approved by the FDA, saying that it will provide a foundation for a healthier life and so forth. So we'll give you a sheet of paper that has a lot more info on it. This is also critical because protein is the building block of every cell in your body. And this product that Shaklee has been proven to help maintain your lean muscle, support healthy blood pressure, healthy blood sugar, and so forth. And it's an easy to digest meal. And if your digestion has been compromised in any way, that's why it becomes really important not to make all your meals like heavy meat that's going to sit there for weeks maybe before it's totally digested, because you have enough stress on your body anyway. So this is critical right here to get into the body. Now, core energy is another thing that has been critical for Tonya and for Benjamin. This helps to normalize the stress response. It decreases fatigue. It increases your ability to concentrate. And you can see all that list right there that it helps with. Stress relief complex is one thing that blunts the cortisol that's being squirted out by the adrenals. And it helps to promote you to stay calm and helps you to address the stress, elevate mood, relax your body, and so forth. This is a critical product. It helps people sleep better at night and so forth. Hydrate is another thing that Shaklee has that helps to provide the essential electrolytes in your body, because remember, Benjamin's shaking was related to the fact that his body could not process sodium correctly and his electrolytes were all messed up. So this is a way that you can easily get those electrolytes back in there. It comes in a convenient stick. You can keep it in your purse. It hydrates better than water, no artificial stuff. You just have to get those electrolytes balanced out in your body to feel better. And then the last thing on our list is called Vital Mag. This is critical right here to help the muscles relax. Tonya, this is one of Tonya's all-time favorite products. This promotes healthy heart rhythm. It's a powerful sleep aid. It helps to reduce stress and just so many other benefits. Helps to maintain your normal blood sugar, blood pressure, and so forth. And we put these together on one document that I'll be emailing to everybody that's on this call, so you can get that summary. And then you're welcome to ask anybody that invited you to this call for more information about that. And Tonya does provide private consultations about any health challenge, basically, but specifically tonight about stress. So if you are in this condition or know someone, I encourage you to talk to her about that. So Tonya?
Yes, and also, if you want to make sure that you don't get to stage 3 or 4, consider taking the adrenal health course on my website on liveamazing365.com. Okay, we're going to close down the recording right now, and then we will open up the lines for Q&A.
Thank you so much.